is open. Whoops. Hey, I'm Jenny, my Mashable's tech reporter, and this is Beauty Hacked, where we're digging into the science and tech that makes beauty innovation exciting. Today, we're talking about a truly unique device for skincare, the Opulus system, which is supposed to completely transform your skincare routine, both in how you apply it and what exactly you're applying. Let me explain. The Opulus system is made up of two parts, the activator, which looks like this, and the opule, which is in here. And both parts are kind of magical. The opule is this tiny little pod that actually contains the skincare ingredients, and it's inspired by a chocolate truffle. And knowing that makes me kind of want to just pop this into my mouth, but I do remember when everyone was eating Tide Pods, and that was a bad idea, so we're not gonna do that. So instead of eating it, we actually talked to the inventor and founder of the Opulus system, Dr. Rob Ackridge, to explain to us what exactly is going on here.
So my name's, they call me Dr. Rob. It's actually Rob Ackridge. I'm actually a scientist, have a PhD in infectious disease immunology and a master's in botany. So I know a lot of different things. Actually, this came about and it was inspired by the chocolate industry. So think of a chocolate truffle with the outer hard shell and the inner center is a cream or some different mixture to allow you to have a different experience. And that's what each of these opules are based on the ingredients we put in the outer coat. And the inner core, you can get an array of different products, everything from face masks, creams, lotions, serums. We can adjust that.
Now the opule goes into the second stage of the process, the activator. This is where the transformation happens. You put an opule into the activator, push the button, and wait about a minute and a half. The activator melts down the opule, combining all of the ingredients in the outer and inner layers, and you get your skin treatment delivered in the optimal temperature for absorption. 107 degrees to be exact. Hey, Dr. Rob, why 107 degrees?
The outer coats of the opules vary depending upon what we want the final product to be. Now, we do have limits in the parameters. So we already have one program in there. Push the button and it goes through a heat cycle. And also there's also going on as a mixing cycle throughout time. So we are limited by a certain amount of heat. We can't have anything that melts too quickly. We can't have anything that has to have really super high temperatures. So we're right in there. So we are restricted to a temperature range, but we can actually modify those coats enough that we can actually come out with different types of products in the end.
It's all very cool, or hot, depending on how you look at it. But of course, we here at Beauty Hacked had to test it out for ourselves. So I've been using the Opulus for the past 30 days, tracking my experience and results, and here's how it went. Hi, it's nighttime. I just took a shower, obviously, and I'm going to use the Opulus Beauty Labs Activator for the very first time with the Regimen 1 Retinol Plus Ramp Up Night Cream Regimen. Precision, peak potency, and results in one nightly step. So this is all I need to use for my night routine, which is kind of sick. Retinol, for those of you unfamiliar, is a very buzzy skincare ingredient that is supposed to work wonders, but can also be pretty complicated to understand. It's a form of vitamin A that has tons of skin benefits, namely used against acne, acne scars, hyperpigmentation, preventing wrinkles, and other reparative skin treatments. But because retinol is such a powerful ingredient, it doesn't always play well, especially if you have more sensitive skin. And my skin can definitely be a little sensitive, and most skin experts suggest introducing it slowly into your routine. Just the thought of all of this potency has kept me from trying it for years, and trying to keep track of how many times a week I could use it to create my own regimen sounded like a massive headache. That's one of the big pros of the Opulus system. It has a series of 3 30-day retinol routines in which you get a predetermined amount and schedule of retinol treatments. For these first 30 days, I used the Regimen 1, which has 0.025% retinol in the yellow treat opules. They were interspersed with blue Restore opules, which gave my skin a break and still maintained a moisturizing routine. Regimen 1, I believe, yeah, so it tells you to you have to go in the right order because some of it's retinol and some of it's not. So the very first one will be a treatment with retinol in it, but then the next day it'll be a restore. Oh my god, look, it's so freaking cute. Oh my god, I'm gonna die. Space inactivator, replace lid. Press button, recycle the end.
Oh, I totally expected to be like moisturizer, so that's really throwing me for a loop. It's also warm. Day 1 of 30. Phew! I don't love the way it feels, I can't lie. But hopefully it'll absorb in fully and it'll feel better. Now I have to clean it because it does recommend that I clean it after every use. It's just a little bit annoying.
The first time I used the Opulus, it was all such a novelty. The device worked great, my Opul melted right down as it should have, and the warm temperature was a shocking but overall pleasant experience.
Day 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of the Opulus retinol system, retinol system. And I've used 2 treatment pods and 3 restore pods. So today we're on a restore pod, and I'll show you that process. It's the same exact process, but it's blue instead of the yellow.
After getting about a week of both treatment and restore Opuls in, I started noticing little sensory and user experience details that I didn't personally love.
So I've noticed that the restore pod, the blue guy, as seen here, is a lot thicker than the treat pod, which is the retinol pod. And the retinol pod almost feels a little bit grainy when I put it on, and the blue restore pod does not feel that way. So interesting. They're definitely made of different things, obviously. And I don't love the scent of the restore pod. It's like super like cotton candy vibes. It's like very, very sweet, which if you're into that, then awesome. But personally, it's not my taste. So that's a little bit something I don't love about this. You also have to clean every single time, which I have been doing, and it's actually pretty easy to clean. I just used my shirt.
My problem areas that I wanted to tackle included some texture on my forehead and dark spots on my cheek.
I have used both of the retinol treatments for this week, and here, I'm trying to get you some good light. This is the area that I feel like I'm most interested in, and some of the bigger texture moments are definitely gone. Could have been acne. I wasn't really sure, to be honest. So maybe that's why, but I feel like it is like smoothing out a little bit. Other areas where I feel like I have texture are like around my nose here, which is awful during cold and allergy season. Yeah, so those are the spots to look out in. I don't see a huge difference around here, but the forehead kind of looks like it already is seeing some results. So that's kind of iconic.
Most nights, my skin routine got to be pretty familiar. I found myself really liking that it kept me on a strict routine, so I wasn't tempted to skip some nights and just go straight to bed. I also loved that all my nightly skincare consisted was one all-in-one product. But during week 2, I started noticing a slightly bigger concern.
Look at that. That's like the product rubbing off on my skin while I'm sleeping. So I mentioned that it felt like it didn't absorb, especially if I did it right before I went to bed. And let me tell you, it's not absorbing. And it's not cute either.
Discovering that the products were rubbing off and sitting on top of my skin when the Opulus's main tech claim was that it was supposed to make my skincare absorb better than ever before was a tad concerning. But I guess I just hoped that that would change over time.
I made it through 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 days straight. Without missing any. Which, you know, that's maybe my longest streak ever of doing daily nighttime skincare.
At the halfway point, 2 weeks in, I realized that my absorption concerns were still lingering. There was still product everywhere, on my shirt, on my sheets, and on top of my face when I woke up in the morning. So I conducted an experiment to be sure.
I'm wearing this black shirt to bed, and in the morning, we'll see if half of the product is rubbed off onto the black shirt. I hope it won't, but I don't have high hopes.
Unfortunately, my suspicions were spot on, and every time I wore a dark shirt to bed, I saw the evidence of a rubbed off, unabsorbed product. And I kept feeling like the products were not absorbing super well into my skin either. However, around this time, I did also notice that my skin issues actually seemed to be clearing up.
This is what it looks like. I just have sunscreen on, a clear sunscreen. So, I feel like it looks pretty good. I was like putting on my sunscreen in the mirror and I was like, ooh, my skin looks very nice and smooth.
At the 3-week mark, I wasn't sure if the product was truly absorbing as well as it could have been, but I was still seeing some skin results. At this point, I did feel like I suffered a little bit of a breakout on my cheek, but according to multiple dermatologists, it is normal for some breakouts to occur when starting retinol for the first time ever. I suffered it, I conquered it, and I kept doing my Opulus duty for the full 30 days. At last, we made it to the end of week 4.
All right, folks, we've made it. We're on our last one. Yay! It is the Restore one. All right, that's it. We are all greased up over here for the final time. 30 days, done.
And with that, I did it, folks. I used this fancy, very unique tech to truly up my skincare game, all while facing my retinol fears. And now, to answer the big question, was it actually worth it? All right, to talk about whether it was actually worth it, let's bring out our handy dandy scales. First up, the Did It Work scale. So in terms of the actual device and tech itself, it definitely worked. It was warm every time. I saw no issues with getting the button to work, with getting the Opulus themselves to melt down. So in terms of bare basics, it definitely worked. And in terms of skin results, at the end of the 30 days and even halfway through, I definitely saw some magic happening with my skin. And of course, part of that is because retinol is a very powerful product, but part of that very well could have been the fact that it was freshly activated and that it was at this perfectly warm temperature for absorption. But my one big thing with it was that the optimal temperature was supposed to make it absorb perfectly into my skin. And in terms of the physical feeling of it, and in terms of it rubbing off on all of my clothes and sheets and whatnot, it didn't feel like it actually did that. So in some ways, in terms of actual skin results, it worked great. And in terms of the physical product, it did work amazing. But in terms of one of its biggest claims, I didn't personally feel like it was the best absorbing product I've ever felt. So all of that to say, on the Did It Work scale, I am gonna give it a 4 out of 5 because skin results are what we ultimately want. Next up, the Simplicity scale. How easy was the Opulus to actually use? I actually think the simplicity of it all is a huge bonus. Like we mentioned, retinol can be a really scary product for a lot of people to figure out, and I think that having this like regimen of it being so clearly marked which days are the retinol treatments and which days are the restorative ones, and not having to figure out your own schedule made trying retinol for the first time so much more simple than it's ever been. Like, this is what made me want to try retinol. So I think that is amazing. And the actual device itself was so easy to use too. It has one button, you put the pod in there, you press the button, you wait for it to do its thing, and then you put it on your face. It's really not hard to figure out. It also comes with a wireless charging pad, so that's really easy. You just like put this right on top, it charges, it does its thing. The cleaning was a little bit annoying. You do have to clean it out every single night after you use it, otherwise you get this like gross skunky stuff in there. So that was not hard, but just an annoying extra step. Overall, easy to use, just a couple more steps than maybe you were used to doing before, which was probably just slathering on whatever your nighttime skincare was. All of which to say, on the simplicity scale, I'm gonna give it a 4.5 out of 5. Next up, the cost effectiveness scale. So the Opulus starter system with the Retinol Regimen 1 or 2 or 3, depending on what level you're coming in at. If you've used Retinol before, you can start with 2 or 3. I personally hadn't, so I started at the bottom. The prices are the same. But the starter system with Retinol is $395, which is not cheap. We hate to spend that much money, but it is an entirely unique product, and having that regimented retinol system really was something that I needed. So if that's something that you feel like you need and that will bring value to your life, that definitely makes it a little bit more cost effective. There are also a bunch of different bundles and systems that you can get started with. So like I mentioned, there's a bunch of different Opuls. This is the retinol system. They also have an AHA system. They have like an exfoliation treatment. So depending on what you want, it'll cost a couple of different prices, but I will say that this is probably the main draw, and it's $395, which is very pricey. But I did see results within those first 2 weeks and at the end of the 30 days, and it kind of did make me want to continue using it. Even though it wasn't like personally my favorite feeling, I can see the argument for why it does what it does. So for $395 on the cost effectiveness scale, I think I'm gonna say the Opulus gets a 3.5 out of 5. It's just a little pricey, but it does what it says it's gonna do. And lastly, maybe the most importantly, the cool factor. So how cool did I feel while using this? Honestly, like I said, so unique, nothing else like this that I've personally used or seen on the market. So I think that automatically gives it a bump. And it is like very sleek, very beautiful, and the little pods are adorable. It also is very environmentally friendly because they do come, there's no packaging. Of course, there's this box, but this is recyclable, and each of the pods come in just this little piece of paper that can easily be recycled. So I think that ups how cool it is to me personally. We love an environmentally friendly product. So using this, making me feel cool, giving me actual results, even though there were little things that I didn't personally love about it. On the coolness factor, I'm gonna give it a 4 out of 5. For more tech, social good, entertainment, culture, and of course, beauty tech coverage, make sure you keep following along right here with us at Mashable.